Mike.
Hey,
Good to see you.
you as well?
It's always a nice thing to see you on a Tuesday morning.
Yes.
One of the things I would say is consistent about you is your demeanor. You are very positive, happy, curious to talk to people,
Yes.
connect with people.
Correct.
It gives you life, it feels like. And as a result of that, you give other people life. You share that energy, which is really nice.
Right.
Can you speak to that a bit?
Well, it's just from a lifetime of work, realizing the true value comes from doing something that you really love doing. And I've always heard in my life that if you find something you love to do for a living, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think I found that calling, so it helps me to be able to stay in gratitude and enjoy. Simple.
So you found that calling now.
Yes.
I'm sure you went through a lot of experimentation and
Oh, yes.
different things to get there.
Correct.
Talk a bit about that, how you kind of eventually got to this understanding.
Well, it was through a quest of, again, trying to figure out what I really wanted to do and who I wanted to be in this lifetime. And realizing early on that I was a people person, so I found myself in sales. Originally in department stores, small ticket, electronics, appliances, furniture, all different walks of life. And really liking the interactions and the variety of different personalities I met through that quest. So that was great. I also understood that as a commission salesperson, I could control my own income. So that helped me to really feel like I was getting paid what I was worth. But there was a ceiling associated with that experience that I couldn't seem to surpass. So in thinking a lot about what I wanted to do, I found myself in outside sales. And outside sales is a different animal altogether, but it also has a different threshold and a different ceiling attached to it. And I love that, and I was doing business to business for the first time instead of business to consumer, which again was very similar but different in volume and in the commercial aspect. When I found myself into a networking environment and realized that it was based on dreams and goals, it kind of transformed my mindset a little bit. So then I realized that I really liked the interactions with people, but how could I monetize that in a positive way? In the networking realm, initially with multi-level marketing and ultimately with direct marketing and eventually with network marketing, I found that was a vehicle that really kind of gave me a chance to explore all of the different aspects of the environment that I really enjoyed being a part of. When I found myself in an environment where we were developing networks, and the first one I went to, interesting story, I wasn't able to actually get into the network. I was blocked by one of my competitors, and I remember how disappointed I was because I really wanted to get to know people in that group. I resurfaced into that same environment with a company called B&I. B&I was originally from California, outside of LA, a professor who taught organizational theory thought as he lost one of his biggest clients in his management consulting business, he could replace that person. So he went through his Rolodex and invited everybody to a morning meeting. Thus, that which was originally called the network was formed. As he decided to develop that, because he had an educator's mindset, he analyzed the data. What he did, what was brilliant, was he enlisted the efforts of PhD students who were looking for subject matters to do their dissertation on. And through that, he was able to explore and analyze all of the data gathered through his activity through networking. So he was able to perfect every aspect of the networking environment. And he got this research done virtually for free. But it wasn't for free because he was providing them as well as they were providing him. So it was a win-win situation for both of them. I gravitated towards that. I like the concept of professionally networking and understanding on a much deeper level what networking is all about. So a lot of people, because networking is a nebulous term, loosely define networking based on their own environment and their own understanding. And if I was in a room with 10 people, I'd probably get 7 different definitions of what networking is for them. But the professional aspect of networking means that you can not only increase your business, you can expand your knowledge, you can also extend your sphere of influence, and ultimately you can also contribute to your community in different ways through a network that could be professionally formed and systematically and structured properly. I love that concept. I got into that organization. I became an assistant director so I could formulate groups. It was based on the concept of changing the paradigm from generating business for yourself to giving business. And just that little twist made it more applicable for people to actually focus on giving business. What that did was that created an environment of momentum and synergy, because if you're giving business, people want to reciprocate. So as they began to build relationships and want to help each other grow their businesses individually, it created a synergistic environment, and their businesses started to progress and really flow. As I got more and more into it, I started developing groups on a much more prolific basis. So I did it in Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, eventually moved to Illinois, where I built 35 groups in Chicagoland environment. I moved down because we wanted to live in the South for the climate. So I moved down to Southern Georgia, and I built groups in Atlanta, in that metropolitan area, and in Alabama, and in Florida, LA. I had tutors as this thing expanded worldwide based on his publication of books on the subject matter. I became exposed to experts in this endeavor from all over the world. My one primary mentor that I'll never forget name is Andrew Hall. Andrew Hall was from the UK. He was a district director for the UK who helped launch and develop it there. He also spearheaded the launch of starting these environments in France, Germany, Spain, the Netherlands. Now Andrew is actually the national director in China. So he's flourished, and through listening to how he went through his experiences, I learned a lot about this whole concept and how to develop it. He actually has a book out called The Handy Guide to Networking, which is an excellent one that I had autographed copy that I lost, the bane of my existence, but I'll get one again. But that really opened my eyes to the possibilities. I was able to travel around the country and build 150 groups on my own, and eventually buy my own franchise in the southern tip of Georgia, which was perfect. In the Brunswick area, St. Simon, Sea Island, on those barrier islands, it was a beautiful part of the country, and I love being there. Unfortunately, I started this venture in the beginning of 2008, before the collapse of the economy. And at that point in 2010, people were really struggling with figuring out if they were going to have a business, if they were going to have a financial life. So I had to make the determination to either try to hang on, and maybe I wouldn't be successful and go bankrupt, or to sell it, pay off my debt, and just move on and start all over again. So I decided to sell it, move on, went back to corporate America, worked for about another 10 years in corporate America for a couple Fortune 500 companies, and found that I really missed that environment of teaching people how to network more professionally and build these communities of business people. So I eventually, through me and my wife's experiences in life, decided to move back home. Thought Buffalo was an ideal location to start a business, a great training ground, and my home. So that's how Quality Contacts started. And it was the same concept, but a little bit different formula, because now through me starting out, I can actually customize my approach to that local environment I find myself in. What I learned moving around the country was that all of these areas had different aspects, advantages, disadvantages, and personalities involved with them. If I could customize my approach to that local environment, I could maximize my production a lot more. And I found that to be a very worthwhile and growth formula. So I was in the top 5% of people who were starting groups out of 350 different directors worldwide. So I felt like I had something there, but I knew it was mainly because I really loved what I was doing, meeting so many wonderful people in this separate mentality that the independent contractor, the small business entrepreneur, and the commission salesperson live in. I think it's broken down into two categories. One is the 1099 and the other one is the W-2. W-2 people don't think like business people do. Business people have a higher threshold for pain and for consciousness of the environment, and a higher risk level. The return based on the risk is much greater if you're successful. So I love that environment, and that's basically what got me into this thing and why I love what I'm doing now, really exposing people and teaching the new generations coming up why socializing and interaction with other human beings is so important and vital to our development as human beings. Did that help?
Wonderful amount there. Thank
Yes.
you for sharing all that. There's so much in there.
Yes.
But I'm going to pull from something you said about halfway through, which is that networking is about dreams and goals.
Yes.
And I like that.
Yes.
I've not thought about it like that, but it absolutely is. It's about aspirations, about desire to help yourself grow, and as you mentioned, help the community grow. And
Correct.
It's a symbiotic relationship. And so when you think about dreams and goals, what does that bring up in you for yourself?
Well, you know, it's funny. It's like the question of what is the meaning of life, you know, and through an experience, me and my wife are cancer survivors. So as we went through that experience, first she being diagnosed with colon cancer and being stage 3, and actually someone who never was ill found herself in pain, and in going to the emergency room, she was in surgery that night. That's how grave it was. And watching her go through that experience, and then 6 months of rehab, 2 surgeries, 6 months of chemo. It was literally a 2-year ordeal. And unless you've actually gone through it, you can't understand what an emotional and psychological roller coaster it puts you on. As soon as she was healed, thank God, she came through it through the expertise of some tremendous doctors that we found ourselves having access to. And me not being an independent contractor and being in a paid corporate environment, having insurance to be able to support this actual recovery, which is something people don't really think about. It was a tremendous experience. And once she cleared, literally, the next 6 months, I'm diagnosed with cancer. I go through 2 surgeries. I get 6 weeks of radiation. Mine was stage 1. I didn't even have any symptoms. Compared to her, mine seemed like a piece of cake. And being very blessed to have been able to go through that, realizing that really what's important to us is our relationships and family. In the quest to acquire financial goals, I found that them by themselves were empty. And really the true essence of life is in the relationships that you have with other human beings. So we decided to move back to Buffalo and be able to reconnect with family. 2 granddaughters here that are growing up, teenagers right now, and loving the fact that we can be around them and watch them go through their transition in life, but also be able to meet so many new wonderful entrepreneurs that I really feel blessed and fortunate that I'm able to do what I'm able to do, and that people welcome me into a window in their life that is a little bit more deeper than the superficial relationships that most people have with each other. So that was my dream, and I'm living it.
That's abundantly clear.
Yes.
For sure. So I'm going to pivot slightly then. The relationships we have, the connections we have, as you say, are the most valuable things we have.
Right.
And I agree completely. They offer us more value than any device ever will, any products, anything else. Like the experiences with people are the best,
Right.
and the most valuable. And so we're in a time right now where the world is divided. People are divided all over the place in lots of different ways. And what do you make of that? Like, how do you think that affects us as a species? I guess with the importance of that connection being so clear.
Oh, well, that's a much deeper question, geopolitical, than what we got time to get into today. But for me personally, I just see it from the outside of people are tribal by nature. And this has been going on since the beginning of time. Cain and Abel, Christians and Muslims, all of the empires that have come together, and it seems as though people always find a way to divide themselves and immerse themselves in conflicts. I'm very optimistic about the resiliency that human beings have, and that we will always find a way to get through it and to proceed and prosper from it. But I think in order to benefit and appreciate the good, you got to go through the deep lows so that you have a actual point to be able to reference and understand why this is so valuable. To have your health, to just have the things that you don't know. People say, Mike, you're losing your hair. Well, I'd rather lose my hair than my eyes, my ears, my throat. I had throat surgery and couldn't talk for almost 6 months. And through that endeavor, I was told I would only have my voice out for 2 weeks. And because I was in sales and running a store as a manager, I couldn't live without my voice. And it was a very trying time to show me how fleeting and fragile life really, really is if we don't really appreciate and take advantage of every day that we encounter and look at it as a gift and really appreciate it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It really is a blessing to be here and to experience this. I mean, if we think about history,
Right.
We really are in the best time.
We really are.
You know, there's no better time in history than right now.
Right.
And that's something to marvel at.
Right.
And I'm just glad that you embrace it. And again, that's apparent. Like it's clear just by knowing you as little as I do that you emit this gratefulness for life, this desire to just make the most of it. And especially going through those harrowing experiences. I've been, not myself, but people with me been through cancer a couple of times, and it's harrowing.
Yes. It's very scary.
Confusing and scary and all the things. So wonderful to see that you both come through so
Yes.
strong, and you're here around family, and that's a wonderful thing. And talk about the Buffalo community, because you've been to a lot of places, which I really love that you have done that, and it's nice to you've just known so many people,
Yes.
so many different walks of life, and the Buffalo community, like you, have known a lot of people, but there's some communities around the world that stick out, and
Right.
you have a sense of community, like genuine community. Buffalo feels very much like that.
Yes.
Do you agree with that and speak to that a bit?
I do, but you know what? I've never been in a bad community. They all have their different flavors, their different niches. I've learned to embrace myself into the local culture so I can appreciate anywhere, because I've lived in so many different places that you want to participate. Have you ever gone somewhere you weren't familiar with, but the people were having such a good time that you kind of just got swept into the good time? That's what I experienced at a Polish wedding, or at an Indian wedding. Weddings. It's just joyous experiences that you get a chance to share. I found that the spice of life of really embracing other cultures and learning and really accepting that there are good people and bad people in every culture. And good people transcend. And I've been very fortunate in this environment to attract a lot of good people who want this type of vehicle and don't have any other avenues where this would be more prominent. You see it maybe in social, whether it's fraternities or sororities or professional associations or congregations and things of that nature, where people really promote fellowship and really help each other to navigate through what could be very complicated if you're doing it all by yourself. My mother-in-law lives in an assisted living facility. She's 97, 98 now. And it's sad to go in there and see how many seniors are all alone. They don't have anybody. Some of them have lost their faculties and can't even respond. And it's just a sad experience to behold from somebody else. And even though her consciousness is fleeting, she doesn't even really remember me very much anymore. It's so important when my wife visits her that she makes contacts and give her some glimmer of a connection with other family that a lot of these other guys don't get and they miss out on. And I think about, as I get older, do I want to be all alone one day in an assisted living facility with all the money being sapped away from me, unbeknownst to me, and no quality of life? What is it? That it was just very important. Jackie Robinson, I read a book. That was the most impactful book, and there's probably been about 3 books in my life that had extreme impact on me. Jackie Robinson was the first baseball player to break the color barrier in the late 40s in the United States. Before that, he was actually in the military, and he was a second lieutenant when it wasn't prevalent that minorities would achieve that goal. And he actually was court-martialed for not giving up his seat and had a landmark case for the military before he even got out and went on to his further career, which was an amazing experience. But then to get out and break the barrier where all of the things that were being thrown at him and wanting him to fail was another amazing feat. And after he got through with that, he became very involved in the corporate America, and he was actually a vice president of Chock Full of Nuts Coffee Corporation when there were no minorities in executive positions. And then further, went on to be a black Republican who really strived to get Republicans to understand civil rights and why it was important for us to proceed in that area. And on his deathbed, they asked him, out of all of these monumental events in your life, what would you say was the most impactful for you? And he said, none of those things were. The thing that impacted him and what he wanted his legacy to be was how many people he helped along the way. Wow, that blew me away, because he could have rested on any one of those as a lifetime achievement. And I'm thinking to myself, what have I done? And to be able to contribute and bring back this, our youth today don't really have an understanding on how to develop a social entity. And because of technology moving at the rate, they don't really have to interact like they used to when we were growing up. And we have to find mechanisms and vehicles to give them the ability to create relationships that are meaningful and consistent and in person. And that's where my path takes me ultimately, to have and be able to give people the tools to use to be able to build these relationships as they move on into the future.
Thank you for sharing all that.
Yes.
I can see why that would be an inspiration. And, I have a philosophy I live by, which is I can help, so I should. And it's a very simple idea in that if you can, it's not a detriment to you, you should do it.
Right.
There's no reason why not to. And so that resonates with me a lot. And yes, he did all those things, but he lived with a general philosophy. Like, I want to just make the world better, and this is the way I know how to do it. And I would argue that that's reflected in you, is that you spent a lot of time in your life really trying to understand where you found value, where you found skill and talent and joy. And as you say, you've turned that into something that was a career and that will kind of sustain you. And so, and of course, that is helping people. I can't imagine the hundreds of thousands of people you have helped over the years with your work. So kudos to that, and I would argue that you're very much living in that spirit. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. We're actually at time, actually. But that's a really nice place to kind of finish it.
Yes.
So what I'll do, if you want to share anything that you didn't get a chance to share, or you can ask me a question with the last few minutes, up to you.
Well, you too have a wealth of experience and knowledge. We just shared those examples, Martin Scorsese and Clint Eastwood. And these experiences give people insight and a window into an environment that would otherwise be closed. And you too, it seems like we are on similar paths and wanting to help the community and really show the community how to benefit and get more out of it. So tell me, what put you on that path and what is your ultimate goal? I'm very interested to know.
Of course. So for me, when I was younger, I had some burning questions. And I was inspired by movies and TV, and specifically the stories of people going on these adventures, really interesting people, all these amazing places. And I had different words for it then, but I saw it, I was like, if I want to answer the questions of myself, I need to go out into the world and meet as many people as possible and do as many things and go to as many places. And along the way, I'll pick it up and I'll learn it and I'll work it out. And so, and I did so. And I was very fortunate to have had so many experiences in my life, so diverse experiences. And along the way, I've also paid a lot of attention to others and how they live and the journeys that they've been on. And there are those that have lived similar lives, done lots of different things, exposed to lots of different people, and their human skills are abundant, and their ability to thrive and navigate problems,
I agree.
be adaptable and communicate, fantastic. Those who have stayed in their bubbles have not, and they struggle in situations. And so, especially today with social media, the attention economy and whatnot like that, sense of presence and that sense of being social, as you say, and kind of being around people is diminished greatly. And I think it is one of the greatest threats to our species that we've ever faced. And I would also argue that it is the core problem that leads to so many of these other big systemic problems, is our inability to effectively communicate, to be adaptable, to solve problems together, and to be creative. Right? And so for me, I want to create access to experiences that help people develop those fundamental human skills, the kind of skills that you cannot learn through a book or a lecture, you can only learn through experience. And people don't have much access to them like in such a structured and valuable way that's also fun and engaging. And so that's what I want to do. I want to essentially change the global psyche. I want to switch people on again to be curious about other, about themselves, about what's possible. Because again, that feels like it's diminishing. And so that's what's driven me, is just seeing over years and years and years the value of doing this or not doing this, and a real strong desire to bring out the best in people.
Yes.
And I think we're in a moment where we need that, and so that's what I'm trying to do.
I agree with you 110%. I think we're on different paths, but ultimately aspiring to the same goal, which is to bring these communities and understand that we're much stronger together than we are divided. It's just that simple. Have you found, and this is my last question to you, as you traveled around in these different cultures, that it enriched your spirit and your knowledge about humanity? Because you probably know a lot of people who have been in those globes and never got out and restricted their own growth.
I know many of them still.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're only talking to the same 20 people, that's all you'll ever learn.
Right.
If you're talking to 20,000 people over a lifetime, there's just infinite knowledge and experience that can add value to your life. And
correct.
It's, hey, that person's doing that thing that's great, I like that, I'm going to do that. Or that person's doing something not so great, I'm going to avoid doing that. I see the impact of that, right? So experiencing different cultures and people gives me life. Like I just, even coming to Coffee Club, just talking to anyone here and finding out a little bit of insight about their life, doing these interviews.
Yes.
One of the reasons I do it is I get so much joy and value.
Yes.
Talking to you about the stuff we've talked about today. There's things I will take from it into my own life, and things I will fester on and think about. So, and I do that with every experience I have at this point. And, but I will say that is something I've practiced in myself. Right? I wasn't always this present. I certainly wasn't patient or focused or aware of the things that were valuable to me. But the key for me, again, from being a kid, I had this understanding that if I'm going to realize my potential, and again, didn't have these words, but it was going to be bit by bit. It's not going to happen overnight. And I just had a sense of that very young. So even as I was going through different jobs and experiences that I didn't necessarily like, I was always had this sense like, this is an experience, I'm learning from this, and this is going to take me to the next place.
Yes.
So really every moment is of so much value, and I think that is lost with a lot of people.
I agree.
Real shame.
Yes. I'm good.
You got another one?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, we're on the same path. We understand the richness that these environments bring to us on a different level. So you're able to appreciate them and you're able to really see everybody has intrinsic value. You know, it's like putting a team together. You may not be the strongest at every part. You've got your niche, and this person has his niche, which is totally different than your niche, but together as a team, you're a force to be contended with as opposed to not. So I think it's much easier to face this world with a team of people who have your best interests at heart. And that's very important. I heard one time that somebody said if they put a S or an I on your head when you were born, we'd be better, symbolizing sincerity and insincerity. Because you can't tell the difference when you approach. Sincere looks just like insincere initially until insincere reveals itself. But I have much more substance with people who are sincere and true.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Mine. Thank God we did it.